Welcome, everyone, to today's webcast. The Flexible Law Firm. Is your practice ready to embrace a work from home program? I would like to thank today's sponsor, Zola Suite. Zola Suite is a sleek and modern cloud-based practice management software application with sophisticated time tracking, billing, and accounting capabilities. The Zola Suite data team can migrate your data and documents from existing legacy applications such as Tabs 3, Pro Law, and PC Law. And I am very excited to introduce today's presenter, Gail Roop. Gail has over 25 years' experience in the management and direction of privately held professional entities, which includes finance, accounting, personnel, operations, systems, real estate negotiations, and various levels of marketing. Most recently, she served as the executive director for an intellectual property firm in Philadelphia, where she helped to plan and implement a remote work program. We're very excited to hear about it today. And without further ado, Gail, I am going to hand the floor over to you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you, Regina, and welcome, everyone. There's been a lot of chatter and discussion about working remotely. We were able to pull this off at our firm last January 2018, but it took a lot of planning, years of planning in order to make this happen for us. You can just keep in mind that work from home doesn't have to be firm-wide. It can be by area of practice. It can be by attorney. What we did in the last firm that I worked with, we had shared offices. So again, there's a lot of details to go into working from home. So let's get started. Oh, and by the way, I only have 5 slides because I don't want to flip through a lot of slides with you all. I want to make this more of a discussion. So please ask your questions. So the very first thing that pops up when you talk about work from home is how's the employer, how are the partners, how are the people who are writing your checks able to benefit from this when there's a host of benefits available to them. First off, it's a very good time to take a look at this when your lease is up for renewal. And again, as I said earlier, I've spent a lot of time in New York City and Philadelphia. New York City, the average square foot is $100 a year to rent, and in Philadelphia, that's $35 a year to rent. And you can, and I attended a seminar the other day where it was said that an average law firm today should only be spending 500 to 600 square feet per attorney, and that's including your kitchen, that's including your bathrooms, your hallways, everything else. So when you do the math, you'd be surprised how many of us are not within that range. And what's going away are the offices, the corner offices where they're in 2 area codes. That's no longer happening. So again, this is a very good way for you when your lease is up or coming up to promote this and to sell it, to show your partners how they can be current and how they can save a lot of money. And keep in mind, real estate next to employee expenses is the most expensive expense that law firms have. Employees, real estate, and then everything else falls in line. And with that said, employers should not spend any more than 7% of their law firms should not spend any more than 7% of their revenue on lease-related expenses. What I found is doing this, a couple other employer benefits that do not come down to dollar and cents are that employees are more engaged. Because they're not working 9 to 5. They're working when they wake up in the morning and when they put the computer down. Many times when I worked from home, it was a 10, 12-hour day, and I didn't mind. My commute was 2 hours one way, so I was saving 4 hours of commuting. A lot of people are in that category. Another issue that you'll find, and you can track this easily, if your people are working from home, and they are tracking their hours, they are recording their hours, you will see an uptick in your billable hours. And that, in turn, will increase your revenue, which in turn will increase your profit. I think also something that people have to keep in mind is all of us are recruiting new talent and or different talent. And if you're recruiting someone and you have a work-from-home policy, that might be a very attractive benefit for someone. So just keep in mind all these employer benefits will should be an all-over easy sell. You can show the money, how much they're saving, and how much they're saving, which is not considered money. Now, the employee benefits, they're pretty easily seen. I just mentioned, when I would work from home on any given day, I would save 4 hours of commuting. And I could invest that into the firm. The other thing is that with the work-life balance, I found that you need a special dedicated office. You just can't have somebody working in their kitchen. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that if somebody's working from home, they're taking this seriously. Again, the convenience is all there. And I also find that if you have a sick child, you don't have to send that sick child to daycare or take the day. And you can work from home, take care of your sick child, and still be as productive as if you went to work. And I've heard people very, I would say many people will have told me, Gail, thank God I could work from home because I was able to take care of my 4-year-old today. And you take a look at their billable hours that day, they were working. So again, there's more employee benefits than one I list up here on the screen. But again, this is such a attraction when you're looking at recruiting people. Yeah, we have a work from home policy. Yes, and it does work. Now, some things that I think I did mention, but let me go through them a little more quickly. What you need, you have to be paper light. You can't, let's say you're in litigation and you're going to court and you've got 40 Redwells worth of paper. That's going to be hard to lug back and forth to home and back to work. And that's why I said it took the IP firm that I worked with years to do this, because we went from paper to paper light. We cleaned out, I can't tell you how much paper, everything got digitized. We could do that because we were intellectual property, and mostly everything we did was computerized. So if you have a lot of work that's being done with a lot of paper, then you might want to just take a look at which area of practice is the best for me to start with a work-from-home policy. It doesn't have to be firm-wide. I think that, again, a lot focuses on your client's expectations. Our clients today expect us to be very, very, very flexible. And they want us to be available when they're available. And if that means that when, somebody like Gail, who commuted 4 hours a day, could be available at 7 o'clock in the morning because she wasn't on a train with everybody else in the train car, then that might be very attractive to a client. And our clients, many of our clients have already instituted a work-from-home policy. One other thing about environments, I found that at least in the larger cities, many landlords are now devoting an entire floor of their building to a common space where you can, let's say you have a work-from-home policy and your attorneys are sharing offices, and you're having an all-attorney meeting, and there's too many attorneys and not enough offices one day. Well, 4 or 5 of them can go to the shared office space as long as they make sure that what they're talking about and what they're saying remains confidential. One other thing about this is you might not want to do a work-from-home policy as soon as an employee starts. Let them work with you for 6 months. Then decide, okay, after 6 months, you're entitled to work from home. I also make sure that I would only allow exempt people to work from home. Again, depending on the state in which you reside and the labor laws, you may not want to offer a work from home policy for non-exempt employees. I've talked to various labor lawyers, and many of them say, "Don't go there, Gail. Don't go there." Now, of course, if somebody has an emergency, they're working from home if they can. The receptionist can't work from home, of course. But there may be a situation where an administrative assistant has an emergency at home and he or she needs to get something done and there's a deadline. Let them work from home. So, again, it depends on your environment. Okay, let's keep going. Okay. So where I worked previously, we shared offices. Now, this was probably one of the most challenging endeavors that I encountered in doing this. And the people that worked with me, they were wonderful. And they all tried to anticipate whatever issues there would be. First off, whoever I'm sharing an office with, let's say it's a 10 by 10 office. They have to have similar work habits to me. I can't put a neatnik in with somebody who's sloppy. So when you match people, you try to match them with their personalities and with their work styles. And then the attorneys were very clear. Well, do I get my own chair? Do I get my own desk? No, we were very, very, very clear. You share the same monitor. You have a docking station. You bring your laptop in. You share the same phone. And today, phones, you can easily put 2 or 3 lines on one phone. You wouldn't share filing cabinets. There would be one half of the filing cabinet for one attorney, one half for the other attorney. We agreed as to what days each attorney would come in, so that I come in Monday, Tuesday, you come in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll see how that goes. And if for some reason, as I mentioned earlier, there was an all-attorney meeting, attorneys would be okay working in a conference room together. We actually developed 2 collab rooms, which were very, very useful. We put 4 or 5 chairs in these small collab rooms, smaller than a conference room, but still very, very usable. I think that's about that for that. Let's keep going. Now, here's some of the challenges that we found. Your equipment. Bring your own device is starting to become antiquated. We have no control anymore over someone's laptop. As cybersecurity, as we all know, financial institutions are the number 1 hit entities. Law firms are the second. So when you take I think maybe insurance companies are in there. They might be second or third. My point being is make sure that every laptop that you have is company owned and it has the security that your IT professionals put on it. No question about it. Supplies. I'm working from home. I'm not going, and I'm just saying Staples. It could be anywhere. I'm not going to Staples and picking up a ream of paper and paying retail for it. No, if you need paper, when you're in the office, pick up a ream and take it home with you. And that goes with any other office supply that you need. I did not supply printers or additional monitors or any of those things. If you need them, I consider them part of a luxury. I'm not going to offer you a chair to sit in your workspace at home. So you have to be, and it seems a little silly, but you have to be that detail oriented to make sure that these things are addressed, because they will come up. And the last thing you need is a disgruntled employee thinking that he or she was going to get a printer, and now they have to use their own printer. And I always use this scenario. I remember this, a partner complained a couple of years ago that somebody was that he was doing something at home and he was printing work. And I said, okay. I said, so when you come into the office and you have to make a copy of your tax return, do you charge the firm for the paper that you used to make the copy of your tax return? And he said, no. I said, so it's a wash. Don't fall into those kinds of needs. Here's something that affects people in the Northeast more than probably other areas of the country, and that is, what state do you reside in? where I live, you can work. I mean, I live in New Jersey, and I can get to New York and Pennsylvania within 45 minutes each way. And I'm thinking that if I'm working in Philadelphia and I reside in New Jersey, my home office is Philadelphia, because what I don't want is somebody who lives in New Jersey to have New Jersey labor laws, which are much more, and I'm picking on these two states because I'm very familiar with them. New Jersey labor laws are much more employee-friendly than Pennsylvania labor laws. So you have to be very clear as to wherever you're working from, your home base is wherever I tell you it is. And I did mention the dedicated place to work, so that's a very important. And here's something that I found that it took us a while to struggle, but thank goodness the people that worked with me were just wonderful. And that's remote meeting technology. I can use Zoom, I can use WebEx, I can use Skype, and that's all important because if you're working from home, and there's an all-attorney meeting and you want to participate or you want to participate in the CLE that's being offered, you want to participate. And or you're in another office and you don't want to schlep into this one office. You can use Zoom. And what we did in this one office when we moved, we invested a lot of money in technology in our conference rooms, and we put in what we needed to make sure that people were able to easily log into our system, and you could see them. And it was FaceTime. The other day I was at a seminar, and the speaker, and I say this all the time, but he quoted it. He said, 93% of our communication is body language and voice inflection. 7% is what we type. So you have to have that face time to stay connected. And it's important to do that in meetings. And so this remote, you have to be able to do that. People at home have to have high-speed internet. Oh, and that's another cyber thing. You got to make sure that the people from home, what they're using is secure. You don't want people working remotely in the train station with your confidential documents because that's wide open. But it is important to take a look at that technology, and everybody's got to learn it. Not unlike today. I mean, Regina was wonderful. She walked me through what to do, how to click on my next slide, all these things. So we practiced. We practiced before we started this conversation. Am I missing anything here? I think. Your insurance. Check with your insurance carrier. And that goes for cyber liability. You want to make sure that if Gail Roop's working from home and she gets hacked on her internet, does my cyber liability insurance carrier cover me? Professional liability. I would just check with my professional liability carrier to make sure it may cost you another % in premiums. I'm not sure. It didn't for me, but you definitely want to double check that. And workers' comp. Again, I have a segregated office where I work, my dining room. If you saw it, you'd chuckle. But if I fall down in my living room and let's say, God forbid, I break a leg, is that workers' comp or is that homeowner's insurance? If I go out to my mailbox to get mail and there's work-related mail in that mailbox and I fall down, is that workers' comp or is that homeowner's? So I think that's very important to put in your work-from-home policy and double-check with your workers' comp policy and make sure that all these issues are addressed ahead of time. And you just have to anticipate the most unusual thing popping up. If you do it once, you won't have to deal with it when it does happen. So I think I addressed some of this, but I'm just going to go over some employee challenges with working from home. Discipline. After we moved in January of 2018, 3 months later, I talked to every associate that was sharing an office. And I asked them, okay, what's the pluses, what's the minuses, what would you recommend? And they helped me. And I wrote an article based on what they told me. And I'd be happy to share that article with anyone who asks me for it. One associate said, Gail, sometimes I get distracted. He said, my 3-year-old will come up and be mad at me because I'm talking on the phone. So maybe you need a door on your on your separate workplace. Another one says, I don't feel like I'm at work until I have a cup of coffee and I'm dressed. If you can't work in your pajamas, don't. Get dressed. Do whatever you have to do to discipline yourself. I'm sure we've all seen that YouTube little video of the guy who was working from home and he dropped his laptop and he had a suit on above the waist and below the waist he was wearing his pajamas. So just be cognizant as to how you look when you're at home and you're working. You're working. You're still charging the same billable hour. You're still doing the same work. So you have to make sure that what you're doing at home is as the quality work of what you're doing there. Another thing that the associates that I worked with shared with me was it's very important for them to treat their administrative assistants with the utmost respect. Just because I'm home and you're in the office doesn't mean I can say, I don't know where it is. Just go check in the office. It's got to be blah, blah. No. Have the respect and the dignity and to treat the people who are in the office with the dignity that they deserve. And before you leave, you say to that person, I'm going to be working remotely tomorrow. Let them know. Make sure that they have it on their calendars so that there's no question. And if they have access to your phone, make sure that your phone, and technology does this lovely today. We used Comcast, and it was great. I'm not pushing Comcast, but it worked for us. If I got a voicemail in my office phone, it showed up on my not only on my email, but I was able to get the voicemail on my cell phone. So that again, the technology helps us get through this. And again, I mentioned technology, and I just went through all that. Let me see. I know I'm flying through this. Again, I don't want to take up a lot of people's time. Again, when in doubt and you're not sure, pick up the phone and talk to someone. Keep in mind that 93% talking, voice, and body language. And you can't not come to the office. You can't always be on Zoom. You got to come, if you're working remotely, you got to come into the office. Oh, and another thing about sharing offices, I didn't bring this up, and this was a big deal. Somebody would say, I don't like that picture he's putting up on my office. And I said, okay, this wall is yours, and this wall is his. And the two of you work it out together. And each one would have his or her own inbox. And the receptionist was also well aware as to who was in the office and who wasn't. And when she sent a voice or a caller to that person's phone, it would automatically, again, go to my cell phone, or I could get it if it was a voicemail, and the person in the office could say, oh, this is Gail, it's not me, I'll let it ring. So, again, use the technology to the maximum, but make sure you vet it. You got to vet it. Oh, and another thing we came up with a work-from-home policy. It was written. It addressed everything that I just said. And I gave it to a labor attorney. And we invested the money in his time, and he came up with some very, very good suggestions. Of course, we took all of Michael's suggestions, and then we ran with it. Now, the other thing I would do with a work-from-home policy, I would have my employees sign it every 2 years. I don't know if you moved. I don't know if your work-from-home area has changed. I don't know what's going on. So I don't know if you changed your internet. So I think every 2 years is not too frequent and frequent enough. Now, an attorney might disagree with me, saying, you want to do it every year, Gail. And that may be. But the policy is signed by everyone. And with the attorneys, it's easy to track productivity because they're billing their hours. With a Gail, it's a little harder because I'm not tracking hours. So again, when it comes to productivity and monitoring what people are doing, sometimes you just go with your gut. I mean, if Gail doesn't do anything or doesn't check her emails for 5 hours while she's working from home, she's not working from home, is she? And again, if I go downstairs and do a load of laundry, so who cares? So who cares? Is that really affecting me doing my job without I'm working 12 hours because I'm not commuting for? I think I covered pretty much everything. Again, I am available to anyone. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to help. I think that.
Gail, we've actually got some great questions in chat. If you're ready to move on to Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. Shoot.
All right, fantastic. They've been rolling in, so let's go ahead and get started on some Q&A. So we'll go to the very top, and we'll start out with Diane's question of, when you say work from home, do you literally mean every day, or do you put a limited amount of time? She says currently in her office, they only do 2 days a month.
That's a very good question, and it depends on your area of practice, and it depends a lot on your senior partners. Many senior partners need to have FaceTime, and where I worked previous, we only did 2 days a week, and then you came in. We did have some attorneys who only came in maybe once every 3 months, but it depended on the attorney, the area of practice, and what worked for the client and what worked for the supervising attorneys. So again, that's a very good question, and I would definitely include that in my work from home policy. Make it, excuse the expression, wishy-washy as possible, so you can change it whenever needed.
Okay,
does that answer
great.
your question? Yeah. Okay.
All right, great. So
I definitely.
again,
I had people who worked from home who worked in San Francisco and were on our website. And I'm just picking on I'm just saying San Francisco. That wasn't the city. My point being, they were very far away, and you can still represent them as being in your firm, and they're working remotely. But I think it's important to see a person now and again.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, great. And Beth just wanted to make a comment, just kind of going back to what we just talked about. She just stated, like the other participant, we limit work from home days to 3 days per month. And she just stated we do not pay for their laptops, iPads, cell phones. She just says it's too cost prohibitive and at this time for them. So but Susan actually has a question. Do you have requirements for home internet connection, baseline requirements for speed and security? Do you make contributions towards cost of home internet connection?
I have to tell you, there's no one on this call who wouldn't have internet if they had to go to work every day at home. Everybody on this call has internet at home. So I'm not paying for it. I'm not paying for, well, we didn't pay for it. I shouldn't say I'm not paying for it. We would not, and that was a question that was asked. Are you going to contribute to my internet? No. But you may want to. We did contribute to cell phones. We purchased cell phones for people. So we had 100% control over those phones. But we did not pay for internet. And the security of the internet, I was thinking about that. I'm not sure how you go about it. I guess you might want to ask the employee who's working remotely, who's your internet provider? And if they say something like Verizon, Comcast, that might be okay. It might be a question for your cyber liability insurance carrier. What's acceptable? And like at home here, I have high-speed internet. I pay extra for it because I'm on the internet all the day. I don't care what channels we watch on TV, but the internet's important to me. And the other thing is it may also require a secure password. I mean, and forgive me for anyone who has 1, 2, 3, 4 as their password. But you want to make sure that your password, has is a bit robust. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think so.
And the other thing is you know what? Dump that to your IT people. Not dump it, but ask them. I'm sure they have an opinion, and they might have some suggestions. Again, not a bad thing to put in your work from home policy. The work from home policy is turning into the employee manual, but it's important that you address these issues. Good question.
Speaking of policy, one of the questions from Susan, we've got actually a couple of policy questions. Susan wants to know, so how many pages is your remote working policy?
I can't remember because I no longer work from the firm and it was proprietary. I left it at the firm. But I'm thinking it was about 3 pages.
About 3 pages?
And definitely with a receipt that said, I received, read, and understood.
Okay. And just to tag on to that, we've got a couple of folks that's asking, can you share a sample of the written policy? Do you require the non-attorneys to keep a detailed timesheet when they are working from home to hold them accountable?
For our exempt employees who did not, like me, I was not required to keep a detailed time entry. I offered it, and my boss told me, Gail, it's not necessary. I think that I always say make a rule not for the lowest common denominator, but for your group as a whole. And as I said earlier, if I didn't respond to an email after 5 hours, it would be clear that Gail's getting over, or is there a reason? And one thing that Martin, my old boss, would do, one thing he could do, I should say, I wouldn't say that he would do, he taught me how to do it. We had Skype, and it was very easy to see who was on and who was off. So if he wanted to see if Gail was working remotely, I was a member of Skype, and it was easy for him to see if I was part of the group or not. And it would have a little green bubble on it. So again, use your technology. Go to IT.
Great.
And
great.
each firm is unique. We are all unique, and a lot depends on where your comfort level is. And it may be, Gail, you know what? You can work from home, but you can only work from home 1 day a week. And okay, all right. Because what I did, it was important for me to have FaceTime with all the employees. So again, it depends on what you do. But the non-exempts, I would be very, very careful again with your state laws. And I have a colleague, Beth, who told me she allowed, and I think it was 3 days a month, to allow her non-exempts to work 3 days a month from home, which is a big deal. It was a smaller firm, it wasn't 100 attorneys, but if you can do that, that is a big employee retention factor. And today, with employees, I read today that employees are leaving their jobs at an exponential rate than ever before. They're quitting at ridiculous rates, and to replace an employee in the legal, it costs about 3 months of that employee's salary. So it's not cheap when somebody resigns. So this is a nice benefit that a firm can offer.
Mm-hmm.
I know I went off off topic. I apologize.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm sure you're providing some great information. Just kind of real quick, just one more question in reference to policy. We just got one statement from Karen you may want to expound on. She just states, I'm a little confused why work from home policy is not even considered for non-exempt staff.
Again, it depends on your labor laws. And I think that non-exempt staff has to, and again, I'm working on my experience with Philadelphia and New York and New Jersey. That what we did is when I came to work, I had to sign in, and then when I came home or when I left, I had to sign out. I had to sign in and out on the computer with respect to when I took lunch. And I couldn't do that on my phone because I could do that remotely. I could only do that at my workstation. And again, there's been a lot of lawsuits, and I'm not mentioning any large law firms, but I'm thinking of one in particular that got sued because a paralegal said that she was treated inappropriately, and she was considered an exempt employee when she was non-exempt. Non-exempt employees do not generate their own work. That's my rule. And that's how I think about it. And exempt employees do generate their own work. And again, this is a labor question. You take it up with a labor lawyer in your area, but you want to make sure. And sometimes the laws are there to protect non-exempt employees, as what had happened with this one paralegal in this law firm. But and sometimes the protection is too protective, which is why my one colleague told me she allows 3 days a month for some. And and I don't know that I need a secretary to spend money on her to have. And I'm saying her. It could be him. And secretary is an antiquated word. Somebody's correcting me. But let's say your administrative assistant is working from home. I have to supply that person with a laptop, and I don't know that I want to do that. I think many of my administrative assistants had desktops, and the beauty about them, when they were done, they were done. Because if they came home and they're working 2 hours beyond their 8-hour day, they have to put in for it, they have to charge overtime. And if they don't do it, and then later on they say, oh, my employer didn't pay me, you're getting sued. That's why a lot of people don't want to use allow the non-exempts to work from home. I think I'm rambling. But again, labor attorney. Check with the labor attorney in your specific state. This is state by state.
Mm-hmm. All right. We've got lots of conversation going on in the chat. We've got lots of questions. I'm trying to couple them up together so we can make sure that we get everybody. Let's see. How do you handle confidentiality and protecting firm information? Were there any additional documentation to be signed by employees for remote work options?
That's a great question. That's a great question because, when this was implemented in the intellectual property world, 99.9% of our work was done electronically. And it was, so it a lot depended on our security with our systems. And that's why I said, bring your own device, forget about it. You're using my device. If you lose it, I can wipe it clean in a minute. So I think that, as far as the cyber liability goes, the best thing to do is to talk to your IT department. These might be great conversations to have with ILTA to make sure that people who are working from home, and this is not just from home. This is on the beach. This is on vacation. I mean, I've taken my computer to a hotel on vacation and, put in my 4 hours before my husband woke up and yelled at me. But, that you can do. And but was I concerned about that security? I should have been. So, and many times maybe what you want to do is provide links instead of attachments. But again, that's beyond my expertise. But I would definitely go to my group, and if I didn't have the right IT people on my team, it would definitely be a question I would pose to ILTA. Okay.
And we're going to just kind of go back to the exempt and non-exempt. We've got lots of conversation in the chat about that. And so we've got some conversation going on about the morale in the office. So we've got one question here that says, how was morale with exempt staff being able to work from home and non-exempt unable to work from home?
Okay. And this was addressed more than once. That's a very, very, very good question. I apologize for not bringing that up on a slide. What we would do is, and I think we can all appreciate this, in the summer, I'm an attorney. I work Monday, Tuesday. My other attorney works Wednesday, Thursday. The two of us stay at home on Friday. It's a Friday in the summer. Forget about it. But everybody in the office is there on a Friday who is non-exempt, and they're complaining, where is everybody? We're the lowest paid people, and we have to be here, and everybody else is home. And that is what I heard. And at the time, the HR director, now the firm administrator at this place, suggested that we do a summer hours on Fridays. And I said, excellent. Let's take it up to management committee. And what we suggested was, everybody give us a half hour of your lunch, and we'll give you a half hour in the end of the day. Everybody go home an hour early. Nobody called in sick on a Friday. Everybody showed up. And the 6 hours of physical work that we got 8 hours of work out of these people because nobody was complaining. They loved it. If it was a day before holiday, we would say, how about summer Friday today? Okay. And what I would do is I remember coming to work on New Year's Eve, and one of the exempt staff, non-exempt staff, said to me, "Again, why are you here today?" And I said, "Because you are." And she goes, "Thank you." So I think that those little things that you do, and I think we bought pizza for everybody a couple of times on the Fridays, but these make a difference. And people do understand it. And again, I can't have the file room guy working from home or the receptionist. And many times, you know, and again, if a if an administrative assistant tells me that her child is in the hospital, go. Take a PTO, and then if you have to work from home this weekend because there's a couple filings that have to be done. And the whole thing is if somebody's getting over, I'm going to know it. So I don't have to make my rules for one person getting over. Make my rules for the group. And the one person getting over, that person and I are going to have a conversation. But and there were a couple people who might have wanted to push the envelope, but we knew that. And the people who were not exempt loved it. And again, those 3 days a week that my friend said she allowed her non-exempt to work from home worked. But again, I would be more concerned about the non-exempt not having the laptop that I provide and not having the other things that I'm providing to make sure that stuff is safe.
Right. And you kind of answered Corey's question that Corey had a little earlier on. So that question was, how do you monitor an employee working from home besides just a keystroke monitoring device? You might want to go in depth on that a little bit.
Well, I think sometimes you use your gut. And, you know, let's say you've got where I worked, we ended up using glass walls in our offices. So you could see everybody, and everybody could see you. And if an employee isn't at his or her desk for 2 hours, where are they? And, you know, and sometimes it's just your gut. You think, you look, you go, that doesn't make sense. Or, again, Gail's not responding to an email that I sent her 3 hours ago. What's she doing? Let me pick up the phone and call her. She's not picking up. And then you have a conversation with that person. Don't make a rule, but have a conversation. You know, I tried to get you. Where were you? Because many times it's an individual, not an employee group. So it's, again, you go with your gut and you go with your experience, and you will find some people trying to get over. But you'll find that no matter what you do.
Yeah, that's true. And one great question. Did you notice a difference in productivity, either in a positive or a negative way, when people worked from home versus in the office? And you may have addressed this a little bit already.
I think that working from home, there is definitely an uptick in productivity. When we did this in January 2018, we then changed our time and billing, and then we then changed our operating system from one to something to some. We were on Windows 10, and we moved up to something more current. And so we not only moved people, but then to move people is an arduous process. The other stuff is easy. It's moving people. And then changing their time and billing, and then changing how they handle their documents. I'm surprised I didn't get thrown off the 28th floor by the time we got to that thing. So we had so many balls in the air that it was hard to monitor. I wanted to track it, but I think that if you track it, and this is your only change, and you don't do what Gail did. You just do this work from home policy. You're going to see an uptick in billable hours. Because and when you think about it, back in the day, and I'm probably showing my age, we used to be able to bill for traveling. Many clients aren't eating that now, that's for sure. So, but they are going to pay for you sitting in your office at 8 o'clock and working. So you're going to see an uptick. And if there's a bonus program with billable hours, yes. I think the hardest thing to monitor are the people who don't record their hours. But again, there are certain technologies, and again, you go with your gut. I always say that artificial intelligence is awesome, but it's only as awesome as good as the people using it and the people making it.
Right, right. And I just wanted to share with everyone that's listening in today, there's some great information and great chat that's going on in our chat module. Some resources are being shared. You can go to File, Save, Chat if you want to save that information for later. I just see that everyone's kind of sharing some details, things that they use. Here's another great question here. Can you address home base again? Our home office is in North Carolina, but we have an employee who will be starting soon who lives in Georgia. She will be doing North Carolina work, but from Georgia. Would North Carolina laws apply, Georgia, or both?
Well, here comes the lawyer answer. It depends.
Okay.
And I in Philadelphia, now I'm going back a few years, when law firms were charged with gross profits tax, and or gross income tax, excuse me, we had to start keeping track of where you did the work. Did you do it in a suburb? Did you do it in New Jersey? Did you do it in Philadelphia? So I would expect that this person has to record her time in Georgia where she lives, and then and I think it may also depend on those states' rules, because and Philadelphia was crazy because it's not that big of an area, and yet there were like 7 jurisdictions you had to follow through. But definitely reach out to your I would reach out to my accountants.
Mm-hmm.
And my labor attorneys again, because I don't want to misstate, but definitely that person would probably have to record her time as in Georgia, where she licensed. Is she doing North Carolina work? Is she and again, that's a function of North Carolina. North Carolina and Georgia are a little more employer friendly than Philadelphia. So you probably can just, and they're probably going to say it doesn't matter.
Okay.
And,
right,
and does the client care? Does the client care? That may be another thing. I don't know. Now clients are demanding everything from us, and we're not in the driver's seat anymore. I read an article just the other day that clients are our number one competitors. So if our clients allow their employees to work from home, we're really we're not at the forefront of this at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I'm going to go back to Elizabeth, kind of going back to non-exempt again. She just kind of states that, talk about non-exempt. In my view, working from home has been going on for attorneys and paralegals for a long time and is well established. The pressure we get now is from staff to work from home 1 or 2 days a week. Also, how does attorney collegiality fare in firm building activities such as mentoring associates when attorneys work from home? Do they suffer or diminish?
Yes. Anytime you're working from home, and again, that's why I mentioned the 93% of voice inflection and body language. It's important that if you're working from home, you stay connected. And I'm going to use a personal analogy that I think many of us can relate to. Long distance relationships don't work. So you have to see the person, and the partners of your law firm want to see you. So I think it's yes. And here's the other thing: if administrative assistant A is working from home 3 days a week, administrative assistant B is going to go, why can't I? And every time you make an exception or whatever, somebody else is going to say, I want that too. If somebody, and we've all experienced this with flexible hours. Some people come in at 8, some people come in at 7, some people leave at 3, some people take a half-hour lunch. So again, a lot depends on the personality of the law firm, what's accepted. And I think it's important to take the pulse of your people. Your people are your intellectual property. This is your work in process. This is how you make a living. We're privately owned entities, and what we have to do is make sure that our people are engaged, and that includes the receptionist. That includes the mailroom guy. They need to be engaged too.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's important that we include everybody, but again, the exempt non-exempt is it's an issue, but if I need somebody to type something, file something, and scan it in, he or she might not have that ability at home. The other day I was asked to fax something from home. What? What? Can I scan it to you? No. I had to go to Staples, and again, I'm not picking on Staples. I had to go to Staples, and by the time I dropped a few 4-letter words, I don't know how many times, I got it done, and it only cost me $8 to scan 3 pages or to fax 3 pages. And I'm thinking, wow, talk about outdated technology. And I'm thinking, okay, for me to fax from home, I'm going to have to get a landline, which I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to spend the $7 at Staples when I have to fax.
Right. And speaking of that, so here's one question I don't think we've addressed. So what about reimbursing for home utilities for remote employees?
No. And here, I don't reimburse you for the gas you use to get to work, do I?
Right.
I don't reimburse you for your train fare. And you put that in your work from home policy. And your utilities are not going up substantially because you're using the internet and because your light is on all day. A lamp is on all day. No. And we were asked those questions. I'm not reimbursing internet. No, I was very, very clear what we would reimburse. I'm not going to reimburse you having your lawn cut. And before 2018 and the tax changes, you used to be able to deduct your office and your house. Can't do that anymore. I'm pretty sure, and I don't want to state for states, but I know federal knocked that out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, with the remote, what you're doing outside of your house. Because we can pretty much contain our homes if I'm working 2 days a week. But if I'm working 2 days a week at home, and one of those days I decide to go to the Jersey Shore, is my firm secure? I don't know. So that may be something you want to put in your policies.
Okay.
But again, labor attorney, invest the money. It's worth it because once something bad happens, and something bad will happen, you want to be able to at least go back. And I've heard many litigators say to me, Gail, well, that won't stand up in court. I go, well, maybe it won't, but at least I addressed it.
Okay. We have another question to follow up on the utilities. So Alma just wants to know, in regards to not reimbursing for utilities, what if we don't have an office for our non-exempt employee to go to? Is it still a no?
You have a non-exempt employee that doesn't have an office to go to? I would say no.
I think that, okay. I think that's the way that I'm reading it. If that's not right, Alma, you can chat to us and be a little bit more descriptive, but I think that's what she's stating.
And the other thing is you make your rules for the general population and be very, very careful with exceptions. Every time we made an exception, there would be a line outside the HR manager's office. Well, I want that exception. Well, no. So try to make your rules and say, well, that's how we're doing it. That's how we're doing it. And again, and I can say this, at least from my experience with larger firms, when I say larger firms, over 200 attorneys, they don't want to hear about working from home for non-exempts. They don't want to hear about flexible hours. Mm-hmm. And these are the few people that I've chatted with. Say, yeah, we don't even go there with us. Or it's snowing and we're letting people go an hour or something like that. They go, no, take PTO. You got PTO, use it.
Okay.
And so they're very, very strict because they don't even want to touch it. So again, if there's anything with any policy from work from home, watch out for those exceptions. I had a woman come to me with a doctor's excuse. Okay. And you know how many people knocked on the HR manager's door after that? I had another woman come to me saying she wanted to become an independent contractor. These are non-exempts. Mm-hmm. And I had to do the research to find out why that wouldn't work, and we took care of her, and I think she became she is to this day a valuable and productive employee at this firm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great, great. All right, we're almost getting close to the top of the hour, and this question has come up quite a few times, and actually Cindy has just provided some great information. So a few times I've seen people are asking for samples or examples of work-from-home policies. Can anyone provide one? Is there a link to something? And so Cindy just stated that, we're just now trying to implement an as-needed remote work policy for non-exempt. We will only allow it if requested in advance for a specific reason. The 4-hour window a repair person gives you staying home with a sick child, non-exempt employees will have to log the work done. We know it will not work in all departments, and we are not going to provide equipment. We do not plan to offer this to employees to work from home on a set schedule. Maybe we will expand it in the future, but for now, we are simply going to allow it occasionally. And she states that there is a lot of great information on SHRM and elsewhere if you just Google sample policies. Gail, do you have any other comments about some sample policies?
We started with SHRM. And
Good.
I'm a member of New York City ALA, and that group was sharing some work-from-home policies. The only thing that I caution people about anytime you're sharing a policy is that policy approved by an attorney? Has it been attorney reviewed? Does it work in your state? Again, the state laws will. In California, oh, my God, what you have to do in California. So it's a little different than in another. Well, and here's an example. In New York City, as many of you may know, as it's in some other jurisdictions, you have to have a breastfeeding room in your office, and now there's legislation out there that if you're traveling, you have to have. The firm has to pick up the cost of transporting that breastfeeding to a home or wherever. So if somebody's working remotely and not in their home, and again, this is on the far left. But those are things that you have to watch out for when you're looking at somebody else's policy. Make sure it works for your firm. We're all different, and make sure that it works in the states. And it makes sure it works for the number of employees that you employ. It might be different under 50, over 50.
All right. Great. Well, I think I have captured all of the questions and content that has been going through chat. Again, if you'd like to capture the chat, because there's a lot of great information, I just chatted Gail's contact information. You can just simply go up to File, Save, Chat to save a copy of the chat. That way you'll be able to have all that great information. And we are going to close this session for today. Gail, would you like to leave us with some great words?
I just want to say, Regina, you made this so easy. That, again, there were no technical issues. And that was one of the things that I complained about when you're working from home. That can happen. I want to thank you and Justin for everything that you did to make this easy, and Zola for sponsoring this, and everybody who participated.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you. This was great, very interesting. Thank you to all of the attendees. We love all the chat. We love the questions. We love your interaction. You made it great. Thank you. This actually concludes today's webcast. We want to absolutely thank Zola Suites for being our sponsor today. Thank you all for attending. The recording will be available at legalmarketplace.alanet.org. We will send all registrants an email tomorrow with this link. And please visit our event calendar to sign up for future webcasts.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.